I think the audio is going. I think so. I see it moving around here.
My shirt looks extra salmon-y.
That's another new word that we've made up here on the show.
I've decided this is my color. I look tan, too. I've decided this is my color.
I think your skin complexion matches.
My skin looks tan.
I don't know. It looks pink to me.
Why?
And look, I'm pasty. But pink, your skin doesn't look any different than mine.
Pink is the new tan. Are you kidding me? Let's not compare right now. I look like dark.
You're just a little bitter that you were on vacation for like a week and you're no tanner than you were after the fact.
I just agree to disagree. Oh, you really hurt my feelings.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah, I'm hurt
now.
No, I was on back-to-back vacations.
It must be nice to be you. You're just going on vacations left and right.
Scottsdale was awesome, though.
Where the heck? What were you doing out there?
Scottsdale for bachelor party. Shout out to the boys if you're listening. Shout out, great weekend. I was there. One of my best friends is getting married in June or July. I can't remember the exact date. Yeah,
you better get that right.
I know I think it's early July. But I mean, I've got it on the calendar in my house somewhere, and I have to be there because I'm one of the groomsmen. So, that was
you better figure that date.
Dude, that was a good time. That was a really good time. And Scottsdale, for anybody looking for a bachelorette party, friends weekend, I 110% recommend that if you're looking for like big nightlife, but also the ability to go out and do some outdoorsy stuff. Because I did like an unbelievable hike and like boulder climb is what I would call it, I guess, because there was like red rocks, like huge red rocks. They weren't technically mountains, but I mean 400 foot high big rocks. Wow. And that was really like a cool thing to do out in the desert. And I saw a bunch of cool cacti too, plural, because there's a lot of them. You
got that right,
dude. There's a lot of cacti.
I'm sure there's some stories that you can't go into detail about either, but the trip was a success.
The trip was fun, man. Trip was fun. House was amazing. Weather was perfect, and it was good to spend time with the boys.
Oh yeah, for sure. Catching up with people you probably haven't seen in a little while.
People we just don't like. We don't normally get that kind of time together. Yeah. Some friends that you like. A lot of the time when you're going out to catch up for lunch or trying to make it work during the work week. You know what I mean? Like people you just fall out of contact with as life goes by.
Yep.
And so having that time to just hang out and joke around and get a little rowdy, it was a lot of fun.
Do you think there are a lot of people that go out to Scottsdale for bachelor and bachelorette parties?
That's why I was calling it out. I mean, yes, it's like somebody compared it to Nashville, but like way more bachelorette parties in Nashville, because Nashville is known for that. Like you go down to Nashville any given weekend and you're going to run into a bunch of like bachelorette parties, but this was like every club we went to, it was every other group you talked to was there. You'd either see like the sash that said like bride to be, or you'd see like a little like crown, or you'd go just anybody bumped into. I mean, it was, I'm not kidding you, 1 out of 2 would be like a bachelorette party.
So basically there's no locals. It's all just people visiting for bachelor and bachelorette
I think there's
parties.
probably some locals.
You didn't pick up on my sarcasm.
I did pick up on your sarcasm. I just ignored it.
Yeah.
I went like this. I went, and I pushed it down. I went, stop. I mean, there probably was. There was one. I have to tell this one story, and then I know we could jump into some more valuable content. This is kind of hilarious. So when we went hiking on Friday, and it was me, and I was the only one not hungover. So I was like up bright and early, and my 2 buddies, I don't know how they struggled out of bed because they got home at like 6 a.m. And we went, and like now by 9 o'clock, I'd been up already because I slept the whole night. I went back to our place at like 1 o'clock. I was up and I'm like, okay, everybody's gonna be dead till like about 2, and I want to go to a cool like park. I've never been to Scottsdale. Like I want to go out and hike, and found this cool park called Papago Park, which had these big boulders you could climb. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go. And they decided, like, they woke up like, what are you doing? And they decided to go with me. I'm like, okay, great. So we were there and we were hiking, and there was just groups of like women everywhere. I'm telling you, it was surreal just how many different groups of like 5 or 6 women. We're just together, like 10 women. We're just like hiking around here. But we're walking this one trail to this big boulder, this big like outcrop. And we pass by this dude. He's got his shirt off. He's got a dog with him. He's got a few tattoos. Pretty in shape dude. Like, and he had his dog with him. And you could kind of tell, like, he had that vibe that was like, I come here on a regular basis to get exercise. Like, he just, the way he was walking, you know, he had his dog with him. Like, kind of, so we walk by him. And my friend Yanni goes, look at that desert dog. And I was like, yeah, that's a desert dog. We were joking. He's like, man, I haven't seen desert dogs like that. I'm like, that's a desert dog. Well, anyways, we were all joking for a minute, and then all of a sudden, from behind us, we hear, hey, boys, is there something I don't know about? And we were like, I mean, he said it in a voice that we're like, this dude's trying to fight us. Like,
Yeah.
Like, we all turned around going like, all right, like, what's going on? Like, is this guy, like, legitimately sounded like we'd made the jokes about his desert dog when he walked by, and he wanted to fight us over it. He goes, we're like, look at him, and he goes, well, he's like, no. He's like, I was wondering what all these women are doing all over the place. I've never seen this many women in my life at this park. And we're like, oh. And I was like, dude, you should have approached that completely differently. Like, we thought you wanted to throw down with us. He's like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. I was like, dude, note to the wise, like, don't yell at people like that when they walk by you. It was a lot funnier in person because it sounded like when you hear somebody ready to fight, that's what it sounded like. We're like, oh, come on. Like,
Right.
we're trying to have a nice hike, and we're going to have to, like, talk this local down from trying to put a pummeling on us.
You just never know these days how a conversation could go and how people are going to react.
No, it went, like, completely differently than when we all turned around going, okay, here we go.
But there was 3 of you guys and 1 of him, so you guys would have been
the guy
fine,
would have been
but-
out of luck.
Yeah,
but-
yeah. Still.
Anyways, I digress. I'm excited to be here tonight.
Welcome back to another episode. Well, this is episode 27. We appreciate you guys tuning back on in, and any new listeners out there, thank you for joining for your first show. Hopefully first of many.
Life-changing for you guys.
Life-changing hashtag.
Life-changing for us that you're tuning in.
Yes, we appreciate it. Seriously. Shall we just dive on into some meaty topics? I should have thought of a different word there, but
I like the meaty. Like, this is going to be like a thick porterhouse. This is like a pound of ground beef meaty.
we're not going to mess around with appetizers. We're just diving on into
The
a
entree.
big old 12-ounce steak.
Oh, can I give while we're speaking of steak real fast, I need to give a shout out.
Go for it.
Nelson Castillo, owner of Prime Steakhouse Cincinnati. Went there this weekend and told him it was my brother. Called him. He got me reservations for Saturday night. I called him like last Wednesday. Not only did he get his reservations, I mean, Prime is right across from Nada. It's right off of. Shoot, I'm gonna have to look it up. Hold on one second.
I think it's East 4th Street.
I think you're right, but I got to make sure I get the exact address.
Might not be East 4th
Off
Street.
of Walnut.
Yeah.
Right off of Walnut, right downtown Cincinnati. Beautiful location, unbelievable atmosphere. He not only got us reservations for 8, but he put us it was my brother's 21st birthday, and he put us up in their private dining room where we had menus that said, like custom menus that said happy 21st birthday Chance.
Dang.
And it was just off the top, over the top customer service, over the top taking care of us. So Nelson, shout out to you. Prime Steakhouse Cincinnati off of Walnut. All of you listeners, if you're going looking for an amazing date night, they've got live music. They've got great food, amazing low-key atmosphere that you just can't beat it. So shout out, and please go there, give them a visit. And I hope to have Nelson on here. I know he wants to be on here soon.
If you book a reservation and say unscripted, you might get a free steak. Just kidding.
Just tell you know Cole. Just tell them you know Cole Hazenfield. They'll probably give you a nod of approval. But I really appreciate that. So I just want to make sure I give him his dues, because I didn't know he was going to go to that extent for us. I just said I needed a table. I didn't say, he gave us the private room with the menus. My little brother's like, dude, you're a boss. Like, he's thinking, like, I'm like, I didn't ask Nelson for this.
You got the hookup, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So it was cool. So anyways, I just wanted to, before we got into it and I forgot, wanted to make sure I gave him his due, because I really appreciated that.
Well, since we're talking about local businesses and partnerships here, gotta give Patriot Signage and Atlanta Creative another shout out. Made some awesome yard signs for us. I know we were advertising that on our social media over the past week, but we do have some lawn signs available still. So if you guys are interested and you're in the area, please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to hook you up. So again, thank you to Luke and Mr. Keefe, and head over to atlantacreative.com if you want to get anything blown up and made for your home office, your house, etc. They make awesome prints. And if you use the promo code LANTA20 exchanges, you'll get 20% off your first order. Heck of a deal.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you this, for limited time only, we are including free installation with our lawn signs. So this isn't going to last forever.
That is right.
But one of the two of us, or Jimmy over there, don't look at me like that, Jimmy. He'll probably have to ride his bike because he got his license taken. But Jimmy will be over there, and we will hand install it with utmost care. And it's a limited time only, so get in while the getting's good.
We're only covering a 250-mile radius. If you're outside of that, sorry.
Yeah, we have an upcharge of $5,000.
We gotta make money somehow. Well, all right, let's get on into some of that meaty stuff.
That steak, that prime steak. Okay. That entree.
Something that I've kind of been thinking about, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think about, but we haven't really talked about this particular topic, at least not too much in detail. But how often have you experienced rejection in your life? And I think each of us experiences it, but we might react to it in a different way. But are there any times in your life or moments where it's like, wow, I've been quote unquote rejected, and like, how did you deal with that? Like, did it impact your life dramatically, or did you kind of just shrug it off?
Well, so you're asking me that. I mean, there's a lot of times in life when you get rejected, right? And it's all in different facets and different atmospheres or situations.
Sure.
So you deal with it differently, when it's a different experience, right? So being rejected by, let's say, a woman that you're trying to go on a date with is going to feel different than being rejected by a boss at work for a promotion, or being rejected for like something you wanted to buy and they say no. I mean, rejection comes in a lot of different forms.
True.
And I don't think we always think of it as rejection. We think of it as like, we don't like go that deep with it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we deal with it like pretty consistently in life. I've dealt with rejection a lot.
Especially being in sales, right?
Being in sales, I mean, dude, that's when they say like rejection is, you have to be able to deal with rejection in sales. It's like, it is so true. And not only that you have to like deal with it, but you have to understand like how you're going to react to it and be okay with that, because that's like you're making yourself vulnerable to be rejected a lot more than the average Joe is, right? If you're selling something, like you're putting yourself out there more front of mind and more, forwardly facing, I guess, like right in front, than you necessarily would be if you have like a customer support job or something like that, right? So sales, I mean, that's a perfect example of like dealing with rejection, and you deal with a lot of it. It just depends on obviously like what situation you're in, and and what facet of rejection it is, because it can come in like forms of losing a deal, or having a prospect not call you back, or not meeting a revenue goal for that month. I mean, there's a lot of forms of rejection, but I mean, I've dealt with it a lot. So again, we can break that down into several different facets, and how I deal with it is a whole nother story. I mean, how I cope with rejection, I can dive into that too. I mean,
do you think I'm going to jump in here again, because you're right. I probably asked a couple of different questions the way that I pitched that. Is there a right or wrong way to handle rejection? And sure, there are multiple different facets or scenarios in which one can encounter rejection. As you said, it could be a relationship, it could be a business relationship, etc. But
I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, I'm gonna turn towards you so I can talk. Yeah,
I'm right here, man. Talk to
Well,
me.
I just want to look at you because I like your colors today. You're matching.
I'm blending into
Yeah,
the
you're
couch
matching.
here.
I mean, yeah, there is a right and wrong way to deal with rejection, and you learn that as you get older, and you also learn that from I mean, experiences. I like I always find myself going back to that, Hayden, is like experiences, situational, like perspective, but that is so true. And with rejection, like it is situational. But the one thing that you can control is how you react to it.
Amen.
Your rejection can be a very big rejection, a very small rejection. It can be a lot to you, it can mean a little to you. Like if I go to the store and I want to get something and they won't give me a discount, that's being rejected. But like either I don't buy it or I just buy it without the discount. But if I go to my boss and ask for a promotion and I get rejected, that's going to feel like a lot more to me, right? Because that promotion for like my career is a lot bigger rejection than me not getting a discount at a store. So how I handle it and how I react from that is going to change. For me, it's always about centering yourself and understanding that there's things in life you can control and there's things in life that you can't control. So when you get rejected for something, you have to come back to like, okay, should I take this personally or should I realize that maybe my value lies elsewhere? So I look at myself like if I get rejected for something, is it a personal thing or is there a very good reason for it? Or is it just, either the values didn't align or what I was hoping for didn't align with what was available, right? So if you look at like all of the different factors, you can kind of react to it a lot differently. But that takes a lot of practice, to be honest. Like, as a kid, dealing with rejection's hard. As an adult, it's still hard. So how you react to it and how you frame your point of view, you have to be very, very conscious of that. And also not have your eggs all in one basket helps a lot with not feeling as down when you're rejected, right? If you are rejected for something and you wager all your life savings or something on it, like that's a big deal and that could really impact you. But if you're rejected, but you got some feelers out for other things, I feel like you can deal with it a lot differently. So, again, dealing with rejection or handling rejection, yes, there's a right way to do it. But do I know that for everybody? Like, no, I don't. I don't know what's going to work for everybody. I know what works for me. I have some tips, but quite frankly, like I'm not other people. I have a unique point of view. I have a unique approach to life. That other people might share, but it's unique to my makeup. Just like we talked about biohacking.
Yeah, for sure. I think to jump in here, though, there are some like recommendations that we could help people with when it comes to dealing with rejection. As you said, sure, like you as a human being are probably going to deal with rejection a little bit different than I can, but there's still patterns of thinking or, some tips that you can provide people in terms of, well, when I do get rejected, like how should I respond? Because you went into saying, well, it's not always like what happens to you, but how you react to what.
It's always how you react to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So give us an example, or give me an example of being rejected with a prospect.
Well, I can get rejected with I'll even go back to my startup days.
Sure, let's hear it.
I mean, when I started my own business. And you're reaching out. First of all, you're trying to figure out how am I going to get money, right? How am I going to fund this? I have some of my own money. That's not near enough, all right? When you figure that out, when you go, shit, I can't afford this. I need money, right? Well, I can tell you, you're going to be humbled really quick when you start meeting with investors because everybody's going to be different. Everybody's going to have a different opinion, yada, yada, right? Well, that is the most hard-hitting rejection I think I've ever faced in my life, was the rejection of, I've got this beautiful idea, this great concept, this great product.
Your baby.
My baby. It's my baby. My baby's not ugly. Your baby's ugly, right? It's that mentality. Like I know this is going to be successful, and when people don't align with that, that's very rejecting. Like that's great, you think that, but I don't think it's going to be viable. Well, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong, right? And so when I had some experiences like that, going to investors or going and pitching the product or going and trying to land new customers, you were constantly dealing with forms of rejection, whether they were rejection of giving you capital, or rejection of partnering with you, or rejection of your idea, right? Like, your baby's ugly. I don't believe in your idea, right? That's hard. That's hard to hear. So the way I dealt with it was telling myself, being a little bit overly optimistic or positive thinking, which saying, you know what? Not everybody's going to have the same opinion I do, or not everybody's going to see what I see, and that is okay. And repeating that to myself and saying, hey, listen, like, not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody's going to love you, but you got to find the right people. So a lot of that was like positive self-talk, and reaffirming to myself that, again, put it in perspective, taking a step back and going, okay, that wasn't personal. It wasn't because they didn't like me. It wasn't because they didn't think I was a good person. It's because they can't see what I can see. And so the way I dealt with rejection in that perspective was, a reaffirmation of myself that it wasn't me, and maybe necessarily wasn't them. It was the circumstances we were in, that they had a different history and background than I do. So their belief matrix is different than my belief matrix. Their experience is different than my experience. And when I do that, and I factor that in, rejection still hurts, but you don't take it on your own shoulders and reject yourself for it. And I think that's the biggest thing that you have to learn in life is, and what I've learned is that, you can't reject yourself just because you've been rejected for certain things. And
well said, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
you can't just let your circumstances beat you down and start saying, well, I'm the problem. I mean, there are things in life that you're going to have to like change and evolve and adapt. But if you sit there and go, man, I'm the problem, it's my fault, I'm the reason this didn't happen, over and over and over again, you're going to start believing it. And that's really going to shift the way of thinking, way you go after life, to what you do. And that's when you run into these people that, or 30 years into the career, saying, well, I wish I would have done this, or I could have done this, or they've just been beaten down, saying, I'm just working until I retire. Now, that's fine for people to do that, but I think rejection is a learning experience. You learn a lot about yourself. They say you learn a lot about failing. You learn a lot about yourself from being rejected. You learn a lot about yourself because you realize that you have the mental capacity to push through that and to put it into perspective and to grow. But it's very tough. So I would say, like, my takeaway from that, my what's the word I'm looking for? My advice is, look at rejection when you have it in any form or fashion, and understand that, again, we've talked about this a lot, you can't control everything. So because you were rejected for one thing or one opportunity doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you as a person as much as it does have to do with the circumstances that might be surrounding it. And take a step back and look at those. Because a lot of times when you get rejected for something and you take a step back and look, you might understand that, like, hey, that, like, for investors, for instance, right? That investor rejected me, but if I take a step back, they've never invested in hardware technology. They have nothing, they don't know anything about aquaculture. They don't ever get in pre-seed rounds, right? So no wonder they rejected me. They weren't the right investor for me, right? And so putting that in perspective and looking at, like, the details, look at all the other details and go, okay, this is why it happened. How can I avoid that rejection? And when you get in life, you're going to avoid rejection the older you get, because A, you're going to either stop going after things that you're passionate about, and also B, because you're going to figure out, like, how to be more strategic with things you do go after, right? You're gonna know, like, what to look for, how to approach it, so you can limit that amount of rejection you have in your life, but you're always going to deal with it. So it's just all about looking at perspective.
I think there was a lot that you mentioned there and a lot to unpack. And I mean, I'll just add a couple of thoughts and then we can keep moving along here. But yeah, I think it's extremely important to have rejection in your life frequently, to be honest. I mean, as you said, dealing with rejection is never easy, no matter who you are, what the situation is, but how you manage and cope with it, that's kind of what differentiates people. And yeah, there's probably millions of different, ways that you could handle rejection. I mean, for me personally, I kind of take that as a challenge. Like, okay, why was I rejected for this new startup idea? This pitch, as you said, going back to your experience too, like just because someone doesn't fully buy into like what you're trying to promote doesn't mean it's not a bad idea. Like you got to keep going out there. You might need to pivot and make some changes here and there, but like, don't be too discouraged. Don't put the weight of the world on your shoulders because like one person or a few people didn't, agree or like what you were trying to do. And again, I'm talking very specific with the example of a startup and, trying to get investor money. And, you've got plenty of people out there that are like, nope, this just isn't something that I'm willing to invest in. And again, there could be a million reasons why. They might not have the experience in the industry that you're in. There's a few different reasons, but it's extremely important to, one, and I'm just repeating some of what you said, don't let that rejection like tear you apart. Like they're not necessarily beating up on you, and there's probably a better choice of words there, but they're not picking you apart as a human being. They're most likely not agreeing with the idea. So like trying to separate between the two might make it a little bit easier to recognize, the quote unquote rejection that you're dealing with. It's like, well, it's not like they don't necessarily like me as a human being, but they don't like the idea. And maybe they don't like you either. And you have to learn to have tough skin. And like, I think that's important too. I was taught growing up that it's more important to be respected than liked. And that's all that I want in this world. Like there's going to be plenty of people. And I know there's people out there that probably don't like you and I mean, obviously you and I want to make sure that people like us, but at the same time, not everyone's going to buy into what we're trying to promote. And there might be reasons why, and it is what it is. Everyone's got a unique perspective and we're not going to be able to please everyone. I know I'm deviating into a slightly different topic there, but
spot on though.
Yeah. At the end of the day, rejection is important. Trying to manage how to cope with rejection is extremely important as well. Don't be too discouraged. That's kind of what Cole and I are trying to share out there. At the same time, everyone has a different perspective that they bring to the table, which I think kind of goes into another topic that we've been thinking about and we've shared briefly. Like, again, using the example of pitching an idea to an angel investor, an investor, there's multiple ways to a solution. Like, you got to stay away from black and white thinking. And I think that's a dangerous pattern that we're getting into as a society where, okay, there's only one option. It's either yes or no. And just because someone tells you no initially doesn't mean you can't find a yes somewhere else.
Or change their mind, right?
Or that too.
Or change their mind. I mean, I look at it, and this is a sales thing. This is a sales, but like no just means we're starting. Like no is just the beginning, right? No means to me is like, okay, there's a no, they've said no. Now let me understand why they said no. But sometimes it is like, this is the reason, and this is the reason only. But right, sometimes there's other factors that go into it.
Sure.
And I think to that point about rejection too, that I think, and I'm not perfect by this by any means, but I definitely like see rejection as such a good way to like find out what you need to work on. You know what I mean? Like when you get rejected for something, or you get turned down, it's like, okay, great. I mean, I love to ask the question, okay, why? Like and a lot of times people don't want to explain that, but if you can get somebody to reject you and then or like a situation like so why is this case, especially like in the professional setting, right? You're telling me no, you won't hire me. Why? Like, what did I not have? And if you can get them to say like you didn't have this and this, great. Now I know I'm going to get the next opportunity I have, right? Or you need to do this and this. Great, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. I'm going to go do that. I'll be right back. You can go do that and come, you know what I mean? So I think we've talked about that before, but I just love, and that's another, like, that's kind of touching into like that constructive feedback, right?
Right.
Of like, okay, I got rejected. Like, tell me why. What, and you're not always going to get that why. I mean, right? You get rejected if you're single and you're out at a bar and you're hitting on some ladies and they're like, yeah, not gonna happen.
Because you're ugly.
Why? You don't right. always want to know why.
Right.
But I think it's like super, super important. Again, it's also, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you, Hayden. Do we look at things as rejection too much? Meaning, like, do we take things and go, oh, like, I let myself feel like I'm being rejected, instead of being like, you know what, like, like, let's look at it from a different perspective. Like, this is an opportunity to get better.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're more focused on what isn't going right than all of the successes in our life. Like, again, if you're having a great day and, you know, someone bumps into you as you're walking down the street and you get ticked off, like, that instant could maybe ruin your entire day or the rest of your day. Or you could react and say, okay, like, you know, this guy bumped into me. It stinks, you know, it might have hurt or whatever, but like you move on. So again, that's just an analogy or an example of like recognizing the bad versus like, well, there's so much good going on in our life. And there's probably a way better way to describe that. But yes, to answer your question directly, I would say that as human beings, we focus way too much on what's not going well versus everything that's going right. And there's a lot of good in this world, more good than bad.
100%.
Yeah. So
you're a good guy.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I surround myself with good guys.
And you blend in the couches too.
And I do that too. Yeah, I think it's really important to not only though recognize, again, going back to rejection and some of the black and white thinking, but also we've said this, and this is one of my favorite phrases these days, is a lot of stuff is relative or subjective. Just because someone, quote unquote, rejects you, and let's say they do provide, you know, a reason for why, well, the person sitting right next to them, and again, these are all hypotheticals or examples, might actually love your idea. So that's where it's you know, hit or miss, and you take it with a grain of salt. Like when
sample size, man.
That
sample
too. That
size.
sample size does
you're
matter.
Hitting on a sample size.
Yeah.
Like you're rejected by one person. Like, what do you freaking do?
Right. And using our podcast as another example, like, and we've gone back and forth on this, Cole. There are some people that, you know, enjoy episode number 10, and then there's some people like, yeah, I thought that one was so-so. But that's the great thing. Like, we're building out a library of different topics and conversations, and it's all going to be relative at the end of the day. It just depends on, you know, what you're promoting, talking about, and who the person on the receiving end is.
Well, at the end of the day, we just want our listeners to have like the best lives and the best tidbits they can take from this.
Yeah, we're trying to.
And if they don't take it from here, they could take it, like you said, from episode 10 or episode 15. And if they got something good out of that, and they're like, let's go, let's get the day going, right? That's what we want.
Exactly.
That's what we want.
We're trying to share some positive vibes, make other people have good lives as well, sharing some tips and tricks along the way. Again, Cole and I will say this till the day we're dead. We're not perfect, you know. We're sharing what we believe is true, some of which will probably pivot and change our mind over time. And I think that's what makes people smarter, is they learn from their mistakes and they're willing to, you know, form new opinions and understand different points of view. But again, Cole and I are here just having some organic conversations.
100%. I wanted to add something to people that feel rejection, especially because this is something that's heavy on my heart, because I've known people that don't go after like professionally things they want to because of a fear of rejection. And we've talked about dealing with rejection, handling rejection, but I feel like we haven't. And we're doing this whole, I mean, we're going all in on rejection here, because that's a big mental and physical toll on our bodies to be rejected for things, and on our mentality and our mood. And I've just heard over the years people not going after things because of fear of rejection. So I guess what I'm wondering, Hayden, is how do you get past that? Like, what is some advice you can give people for getting past or getting over and taking that leap and not, you know, getting past that fear of rejection? Because I think that's a big thing that holds a lot of us back in life. Like, what would you say to people that are going, hey, I want to go after something, but I'm not going to, because we've talked about starting things, right? We've talked about like jumping in and starting something and being motivated, all this stuff. But I feel like, you know, that fear of rejection is kind of an underlying theme, right? Rejection as in failing. Call it fear of failing or fear of rejection. I mean, they're kind of one and the same, right? Because if you fail, you know, and if you're starting a business and you fail, it's because you probably got rejected by clients. I mean, and you couldn't get past it, right? Or you got rejected by a partner or whatever it is. So I feel like they kind of coincide from each other. So what about the people that are worried about fear of rejection in their professional career, whether it's, for a change in scenery from a different company or a job or this or that, what would you say to get people off their ass?
It's a heck of a question. I'll start with that. I think that's probably the worst thing that you can do is to not pursue your dream or choose to do whatever you're trying to do, but you're afraid to do it, so you won't do it. Like, yeah, everyone is afraid of trying new things, whether they're willing to admit it or not. No one really knows what they're going to do, 10 years down the line. Now they might have an idea of what they would like to do, but it's all right to, again, we've said this phrase, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's something that is like building, muscle or learning a new language. It doesn't come very easy, but it's just something that you got to kind of jump into and continue to, deal with it and react in the right manner. For us, using the podcast as an example, and I know I always use us as an example, but I think it's a good one to keep pushing out there. Like, we probably have no business, starting a podcast, but we have that mindset of we're going to go out here and give this everything that we've got. We're going to try to push good content. We're going to try to learn and share that with other people. We're going to get on other people's shows, and there's going to be times where people, one, don't want us to be on their show or vice versa. So we're going to deal with that rejection. And it's like, if we thought of all those things, at the beginning when we both, sat down at, where was it? Panera. And we were like, well, you know what? We both want to do this, but we're afraid that, someone's going to say no. They might not like us. Like, who gives a shit at the end of the day?
Right.
I would be more disappointed looking back and being like, well, we could have had an awesome business or a podcast, but, we didn't do it. Like, we're more afraid of the reactions or the opinions of others than we are with, like, just live your own life.
I think you said that so well. And I think just to add to that is we like to assume the outcome. Mm-hmm. And that causes our fear of rejection to go from here to here, right? If we assume that something's going to go wrong, that negativity you're talking about, right? We take that that negative factor and we go, okay, let me sit around and dwell on it for a little bit, and then our minds go negative. I'm definitely not going to do it, right?
Right.
And then we don't do it, and we say, well, it wasn't good for us. And instead of that, right, what we need to do is say, okay, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is it doesn't work out. What's the best that can happen? Your life changes.
Right. I like the second part of that. We've all heard, like, well, ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, that's common knowledge, I'll say.
But that's like, I'm going to reiterate that for all our listeners. I had a teacher in grade school that has stuck with me to this day, Joseph Hardesty. I don't think he works at Turbine anymore, but he said, what's the worst that can happen? They can say no. What's the worst that can happen?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Now, I'm not saying go jump out of a plane, skydive, and say to yourself, well, what's the worst thing I could die? I mean, skydiving's fine, but what I'm saying is, like, what's the worst that can happen? What's the best going to happen? And lean into the what's the best. What is the best?
Yep.
Look at that and pour emotion into it, knowing that would be great if it had happened. I'll be right where I'm at if it doesn't. A lot of the times we will. We'll be right where we're at if it doesn't happen. Or we'll learn a lot. So either way, we're going up. Either way, we're moving that needle in the direction that's bringing us closer to who we really are as a human being, bringing us closer to where we want to be, right? And we're creating character, right? And I think people with character are super interesting people. And people with a lot of character have usually leaned into things a lot.
Yeah, you got to be willing to take risk in life, and things might not always go your way, but how you respond, defines who you are and builds that character, as you mentioned.
I love people with character, man.
Yeah.
I love people with character. So, no, I just think, I'd like to do a whole segment, because we talked about sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it before. I want to come back to that soon, talking about how to deal with rejection in sales and overcome things, and you to chime in on different marketing tactics and and how to like use customer feedback to get better and stuff like that. I think that'd be super interesting tie into this. I mean, it's a whole other conversation because I'd really like to share some wisdom on that that whole dynamic of first of all, how do you mitigate your risk of rejection in sales, because it's very possible. You don't realize that the longer you're in sales and the smarter you are about it, the lower your failure rate gets, man. The better and the more you polish your craft, the more you like focus and think and like dig in, you can become an expert, and like you can take that losing percentage from like 80% to 70% to 50%, and then you're like, okay, I'm winning 1 out of every 2 deals, and then you go from 50 to 40, and then you can get from 40 to 30, and now it's like 4 out of 5 deals you're closing. Like you're not losing deals, and there's a way to do that. And it's all about being like strategic and dealing with rejection, but also not putting yourself in positions where rejection is evident. You know, you call the wrong prospect at the wrong company, you're going to get rejected. So again, that's a totally different thing, but I'd love to share some. I had a conversation with a coworker about that today, actually. I told him I wanted to be the best salesperson to ever walk the planet.
Heck yeah, man. I love it.
I was like, I want to be the best. I want to know everything there is to know.
Why not, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's going to be plenty of people hearing stuff like that will laugh, and it's like, who cares? Right?
No, I want to be the best. Like, I want to be the best podcaster. Like,
same, man. And if we fall short, look where we'll end up. We'll still be pretty damn good. But yeah, the mindset is I want to be the best. And sometimes it takes, a little while to kind of really, fathom that and understand, but you need to have that mindset of I want to be the best, and only you know what that means for yourself. And that's why I think I've even said this before on a show, like you hear the post-game press conferences of, these professional athletes, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm like the best. It's like, well, are they really the best? Like you can obviously debate that, but like they don't really care what you think.
Right. They're like, I know this is my craft. I know the effort I'm putting in.
Right.
I'd spend 10,000. You heard that song?
Oh yeah. And not to go down a rabbit hole, but if you got critics out there that are chirping and aren't putting in the time, like, and have no skin in the game, who cares?
Chirp. Let them chirp.
Their
baby.
voices mean nothing.
Right.
Absolutely
let them keep
nothing.
chirping.
Like if someone's out there, ripping on our show, which look, we're learning, we're pivoting. There's probably some things that, we can work to improve upon, but if they're adding some negative comments out there, we're going to kind of ignore those. Like, okay, are you out there trying to push good content? Are you, putting yourself out there? Are you trying to learn and discuss and discover different topics? More times than not, the answer is no. So why do we even care?
Yeah, if you're not going to give us constructive feedback, don't give us feedback.
Great point. Constructive feedback is basically what I was trying to spit out, but Cole saved me there. And we talked about that on the previous episode.
Check out episode 26.
That is right. Look at that.
There's
Cole
a plug
finding
for
a way
26.
to plug back into some previous episodes. Cole, I say we wrap things up here. I'm tired of feeling rejected and talking about rejection.
I'm feeling rejuvenated talking about rejection.
Good.
I think that's such a...
It's a powerful conversation to talk about. And it's not an easy conversation. As you said, to kick things off, there's a million different scenarios for, how one encounters rejection in their lives in different settings. But again, more times than not, it goes back to like, how do you respond to that rejection? Don't beat yourself up too much. And it's all right to deal with rejection in your life. That means you're doing something worth a damn. Right?
Sometimes it's the last thing to practice. Give yourself a day and move on with life.
Well said.
I try to give yourself one day. I got one day to be shitty about this rejection. I got one day to be upset. One day, and I'll take as much. If I need the whole day, I'll take the whole day. Next day, I'm not allowed to be rejected anymore.
Amen to that.
Take that with a grain of salt too. I mean, it's not always that easy, but it's all relative. But we appreciate you guys for listening. I think we've got a pretty exciting guest coming on here soon. Actually, this week he's coming on.
Yeah, the episode will go out...
Friday?
No. Yes.
Friday.
I can't do math in my head. My brain's working overtime right now. Yes, we've got an exciting guest coming on later this week that will go live later this week, being Friday, as Cole mentioned. And we have some other exciting guests lined up too. So continue to reach out to us if you'd like to be on the show. We'd love to hear from you. Please continue to share any constructive feedback as we continue to grow over here at Unscripted Exchanges. With that being said, have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, afternoon, whatever time of the day it might be, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.